It's another arcade video, but it's not really an arcade video if you're looking for knowledge rather than looking to build an arcade. Because there is a lot of knowledge whenever I build something, I have to engineer this or that, and sometimes whenever I solve a problem, it's not the greatest, but it works, and sometimes it's like, hey, that was a pretty good idea. So I'm always open to suggestions. So I don't take anything personal. I don't need likes and subscribers. So this is just a hobby and one I enjoy, and fortunately, I don't mind sharing it. So what I did here was in one of my arcade cabinet builds. I put a 20, I guess it's about 23 years old now, steering wheel system that for some reason I hung on to, and I gutted it and put it in this cabinet and managed to hook it up to a game controller of all things. So again, there's some pretty cool or nifty little tricks that I just build, and I thought it would be worth sharing. So that's the reason behind the video, and I'm going to stop rambling and go ahead and walk you through each one of the steps to create my cabinet. Now, you can see in this image here, it's not completely finished, but it's 97%. I've just got to do some work on the control panel and finish up some painting. And matter of fact, it's sitting on two pieces of wood so that I did not messed my carpet up while I was waiting on the paint to cure. We shift gears by pulling the joystick down. We shift from high to low and from low to high. Throttle is forward, so all the way forward is full throttle, and back to neutral is brake or no throttle. Well, as you can see, it can get pretty exciting with this racing thing, especially with the steering wheel in your hand and being able to control the throttle and shift the gears. Man, it's a lot of fun. But you're not here for the fun, you're here to see how it was built. So let's get on with that. The main component of this project is the SN30 Pro game controller, and I'm going to be connecting a steering wheel to this controller along with some buttons. And in this video, I'm going to show you how I went about doing that. Here's a look at the 3D printed gimbal tops that I designed so that I can hook linkages to the gimbals and move them without play. Now let's take a look at what I did for the steering wheel. The first thing I had to do was limit the rotation of the steering wheel. And in order to do that, I wound up cutting a piece of plastic and mounting it to the face of the steering wheel frame. And if you notice in the center around the column, you'll see a piece of rectangle shaped steel, and that actually bumps up against the two angles at the bottom. And of course, the wider that gap is, the more the steering column can rotate. Here you can see how precise the movement is between the steering wheel and the joystick. Here you can see a good view of how the joystick was connected to the gimbal for the throttle, brake, and gear shifting. To make the control panel easy to remove, I use magnets to make that connection between the joystick and the gimbal linkage. And here's a look at how that's done. Also in this clip you get a close look at the joystick that I designed, which allows just forward and back movement, which is all I need in this application. The joystick is a standard joystick that I drilled a hole in. I'm using a piece of aluminum channel and then some 3D printed parts. So now that the joysticks are connected, it's time to work on the buttons. And with the buttons, I used a very simple poker system. And the poker system works very well, but it is a little tedious to set up. But once you get it set up, then you're golden. And the poker system is simply this. I start with a guide that's rests just above the game controller. And then I created a button that will not rotate. So it's basically putting a square peg into a square hole. So it stays aligned. And it needs to stay aligned because I put bends in the shafts of the poker, if you will, so that they line up with the holes in the guide plate. And again, the guide plate is resting just above the game controller. And as you can see here, I'm basically poking each of the buttons. And I'm poking them by pushing this wire into the button on the game controller. And of course, I made an end on each of the wires so that I'm not pushing the wire into the button on the controller. I am actually pushing a 3D printed end. And so after designing the button and putting all these parts together, it does work, and it works very well. And I didn't have to do any soldering or hacking of the controller to get to the buttons, and if you open the controller up, you're going to find that that would be very tedious. So I'll take a moment here to talk about the control panel. You'll notice there's 3 buttons up in the middle of the control panel. Those have to do with the power for the system. The red one in the center is the mute button. So if I want to kill the sound, I can just press that button and it will mute the sound. And then the one on the left will turn the lights on and off of the lighted buttons, because it does have lighted buttons, and sometimes you don't want the light. This game system actually has thousands of games on it. You don't always use the steering system for those games. So you can plug in 4 controllers, or you don't have to plug any controllers in and use the red joystick and all of the larger buttons to do the same thing that you can do with the controller that I hooked the steering system up. So basically, there are 2 ready to play controllers, one hooked to the steering system and then the other hooked to the control panel. So that's why all the buttons on the control panel. Before I end this video, I'd like to give a special thanks to one of my grandsons who was helping me in this project. He's a gamer, plays a lot of Xbox or whatever it is he plays, not sure. But either way, I figure if it passed his test, it's acceptable. And from what I've seen, I think he's enjoying it just as much as I am. So I'm going to end the video with a little bit of race action, and hopefully you take something from it, even if it doesn't have anything to do with arcade building or cabinets or whatnot. It's probably something that I've shown that you might find useful in one of your projects. So thanks for watching, and if you have any comments or questions, just leave them below and I'll get to them.